the Noon is saying, asking, a little change in topic. Thoughts on Eid-ul-Adha? Isn't it a blood sacrifice ritual adopted from earlier pagan beliefs? Keen to hear your thoughts on this, guys, from an Egyptian ex-Muslim. Well, you're more knowledgeable about pre-Islamic Arab religions than I am. So, I mean, the God of Abraham is generally obsessed with generally obsessed with blood sacrifice, but I don't actually know how much that is a pagan thing.
I think this dichotomy, this whole Abrahamic versus pagan, is not the right way we should look at things. Is like Abrahamic and other, right? Because this whole concept of sacrifice, Islam is like a Jewish religion. This all came from the concept of sacrifice in Islam and Christianity came from Judaism, which had animal sacrifice was its main form of the main way of worshiping. Before the Second Temple destruction, the main highlight of worshiping God was to do animal sacrifices, right, at the temple, right? That is what people thought about when they thought about worship. That's where worship came from. That's how you did worship. You did animal sacrifices to Yahweh. After the Second Temple destruction, the two branches from Judaism, which was the Rabbinic Judaism and Christianity, because they didn't have a temple to do the sacrifices at, decided to go two different ways. The Christianity branch of Judaism decided to say, Jesus was the final sacrifice, so we don't need to do animal sacrifices anymore. So the blood sacrifice of Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice, so no more sacrifices needed. The Rabbinic Judaism branch decided to focus on praying and reciting the Torah, and the praying will be the new form of the main highlight of worship, right? But the root of the concept of sacrifice was still very much present in both Judaism and Christianity, and also in Islam eventually, which was very much influenced from, it was like a branch of, you could argue it was a branch of Judaism, right? Where did Judaism, and so when you say, where did Judaism get its a concept of sacrifice from? From every other goddamn religion. The concept of sacrifice was the way to excuse, one of the main ways to excuse having the religious authorities or the religious industry get its share, right? Was from the meat and the fat from the animals that goes to the priestly class and to the whoever, in different religions call them differently, but whoever is in charge of religion, how do you justify them getting, you give them the meat from the animals, you give them the sacrifices, and that's how they get their cut, right? That's kind of like their form of taxing the people for their services. So when you say got it from pagan religions, I don't like referring to them as pagan religions, because it assumes as if the Abrahamic religion is the main thing and they are just the other. But when Judaism was the pre-temple destruction, Judaism was a minor little cult that existed in an environment where what we call pagan religion was dominant around the world. We're talking about every other religion other than this tiny little Jewish cult that just existed in this tiny, very little land. You had the religions of empires. You had the religions of the Roman Empire and the Egyptians and the Persian Empire. We're like, oh, pagan religions. So dismissive of all these main powers around the world. While Judaism was just this tiny little cult that nobody even cared about. But go on.
And it's a very Abrahamic mindset.
Yeah, it's a very Abrahamic mindset, right? So in an environment where all these other religions were the main form of the sacrifices to the god was a high, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, the Hindu mythology, you sacrifice things to the gods, right? You see, this is how the priests get their share. That's a form of keeping that industry alive. Like the whole excuse of God needs sacrifices is because the priests need to get paid, right? And within that environment of everybody doing that, you have this Jewish cult somewhere in Israel, and you're just wondering, oh, why do they have sacrifices? Why do you think they have sacrifices? They're a product of their environment. And then eventually you get Christianity and Islam out of that. That's where you get the sacrifices from, right?
Hey guys, if you're a fan of blasphemy and sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.